Oh, okay.
Okay. I don't know, you'll have to ask Mark that.
What's that?
Since that one isn't used, Eric wants to know if he can put the Phillies on there.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for reminding me.
We'll be here all night. Let's get this done.
I'm gonna get the game on now.
So do you want me to just, get it out and put it on that? On the new deal, right?
Oh, it's almost there.
Oh, that's the wrong one.
Oh, well.
Thanks, well, thanks.
We're on and I'll sign it. All right, sounds good. All right, I'd like to call to order the October 19th, 2023 Columbia Borough Council Budget Work Meeting. Have a roll call, please.
Council President Zink.
Here.
Councilperson Kaufman.
Here.
Councilperson Stahl.
Here.
Councilperson Fisher.
Here.
Councilperson Price.
Here.
Councilperson Littner.
Here.
Councilperson Burgard.
Here.
Mayor Lutz.
All right, would anybody care to offer an invocation? If you'd like to, please rise for a moment of silence. Councilperson Burgard, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Lori, I'm sorry, could the record also reflect, please, that we have 3 council candidates here, Brad Chambers, Amy Kellers, and Nathan Roach,
Okay, thank you.
just to record that. Thank you. Announcement of executive and information sessions, there were none. Are there any additions, deletions, or reorganization of the agenda needed? I'm not aware of anything. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as published?
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilperson Kaufman, second by Councilperson Stahl, to approve the agenda as published. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Next, citizen comment, non-agenda items only. There were no sign-ups. Did anyone have anything you wanted to address the board with? Okay. Mayor Lutz is not here, but Chief Brammer, do you have any remarks this evening?
Thank you.
Thank you. Workshop items. The first, we have a presentation from Mount Bethel Cemetery.
First, I'd like to thank you for me being present. As I look around the room, I could have gone home and changed, put jeans on, but I was at Donegal all day, so unfortunately I didn't get the chance to do that. I'm not sure how much of a presentation this is going to be, but just to give you a little bit of background about Mount Bethel, I'm sure you all know where Mount Bethel is. It's a cemetery that dates back to the 1700s. 25 years ago, I had an interment at Mount Bethel Cemetery where the grass was this high. And I had to have my staff go up, cut the grass, cut a pathway back to where the interment was going to be. And John Hinkle just happened to be there, and that's when we made the decision that we need to do something about Mount Bethel Cemetery. So we reorganized the whole cemetery, and we have a new, well, basically a board of directors that runs the cemetery now. We're very proud of the condition that that cemetery is in. And we want to thank this Borough Council for the past support that you've given us, and I think we just received a check for $5,000 from you folks, and we certainly appreciate that. I think you may not understand, but if this board of directors were to walk away from Mount Bethel Cemetery, Columbia Borough would be responsible to take care of it. So we raise money by fundraisers. We raise money by the annual newsletter that we put out in the spring, and we get contributions in from folks based on that. I will say that the funds coming in from contributions has been dwindling. Especially has dwindled a lot since COVID. We used to get maybe $13,000, $14,000 a year from contributions, but it's probably down to close to $8,000 or $9,000. So your contribution that you've given us every year has been very much appreciated. Where does that go? It goes towards the maintenance of the cemetery. We have an outside contractor that comes in and cuts grass for us. It is a 10-acre cemetery. They charge us $740 a cutting. Usually in the spring, it's 2 weeks, or 2 cuttings a week. And what we've done to cut back on the expenses is the trimming. We have cut it in half. We have them cut the cemetery and then do trimming, half one cutting and then half the other, which keeps our expenses down probably by about $200 a cutting. So that's where your money is going to. It's going to the Nathan Village Historic Cemetery. We have a lot of historic people buried in that cemetery. We have Civil War veterans, we have World War II veterans, we have World War I veterans. I think there's like 376 World War II veterans that are buried in that cemetery. We have one general, Lieutenant Welsh, or General Welsh from the Civil War, buried there. So this is where your money's going. I didn't know what more you wanted me to present to you folks. Kind of open it up for questions and answers from you. If you have any questions and so forth about where this money goes. We did have some large expenses this year at Mount Bethel Cemetery. We had $2,500 to remove some limbs from a tree that hangs over the cottage up there. That was done for insurance purposes. There was some raised concrete on the walkway we had to have shaved down. We bought a Kubota, which was $30-some thousand. That was purchased 2 years ago for the purpose of moving dirt and so forth from the graves. We do not have that many openings, grave openings in a year. We might average 1 or 2. And it's not a large income cemetery. We did recently make plans to do a pet cemetery. We've had a lot of people requesting that. If you walk to Locust Street, if you look off to the left of the building, you'll see an area that we had landscape and stone and so forth put down for a pet cemetery. So we're in the process of advertising that. We're working on the pricing and so forth to see what kind of pricing we can do. We've got some information from other cemeteries that have priced for pet cemeteries, and we think we're going to be very competitive. That's something that's relatively new. We're still working on that. So I don't know if you folks have any questions of me as far as Mount Bethel Cemetery, but I'd be glad to answer anything.
Jimmy did a great job on the pet cemetery
He
section.
did, very good. We're still working on it. We're working on getting it not landscaped, but marked off, surveyed and so forth, so we can get spaces. We figured that we'll probably have maybe 92 pet cemetery spaces.
Cool.
It's just that we're working on the pricing. We don't want to price ourselves out of the market, but at the same time, Mount Bethel needs to make some money. So, any questions you folks have?
How many board members do you have?
Total of, I think it's 11.
11.
11, yes.
What, are you doing anything to generate interest?
Yes, we have fundraisers. They just had the Fête Noire up there, which was a dinner where we invite people to the cemetery. I'll be honest with you, I am shocked that many people would come into a cemetery. We had 200 and some people up there. They dress in black, they bring their own food, they bring their own wine. We had a band up there, and it was a very successful, and then it was a very successful event. And then we have I can't remember what Jane calls it, but it's like an old hearse, where people bring old hearses and so forth. We bring our new hearse and so forth there. I mean, it's amazing how many people come in there just to look at those types of things. I've been in this business for 50 years. I would probably have never gone. But I mean, it's just unbelievable how many people come that are interested in going. And then they have the ghost tour where they take people through there. And it's just amazing how many people are interested in historic cemeteries. So we do fundraisers to generate other income, yes.
Any other questions? All right, thanks, Kevin.
I will mention that Mark had asked me to provide, or did I say this, a budget? Okay. We're so small, we can never predict how much income we're going to have. We can never predict how much expense we're going to have because we just don't know. I mean, like I said, the interments up there are maybe once a year. So we don't really sit down and do a budget because we just don't know how much we're going to generate. So.
All right, and I'm assuming you're staying up for the
I'm
Veterans
doing
Council.
double duty tonight, yes.
That was
I'm here
good
to
thing we
also
put them right at the
represent
scene.
That was by design.
Columbia United Veterans Council. You've given us, I think, $300, is that what it was? To Does anybody have a record of that? I think it's $300. You give us
I think it's 500.
500? Okay.
Yes.
That goes towards the parade expenses, which is usually put towards bands. Now, the Columbia United Veterans Council used to meet on a monthly basis. This was years ago. I was involved in it, but it just kind of went to the wayside where all these veterans organizations are just kind of doing their own thing, which I'm a little mad about, but I can't do anything about it. The Columbia United Veterans Council has one event a year, and that's the Columbia Memorial Day Parade. The Columbia Memorial Day Parade has existed in this town since World War II. It used to be the largest veterans parade in Lancaster County. It used to be 8 divisions. We dropped it down to 6. Since COVID hit, it's down to 4. We're trying to work on building that up again. I've offered, and I'm not bragging about this, but I offered $5,000 of my own money to local high school bands to bring them in to see if they could come in for monetary reasons. First place, second place, third place, fourth place. Last year I didn't get one response from any of the schools. Well, Columbia always responds. I did Donegal, Penn Manor, Hempfield, I'm trying to think who else, Eastern High School. Not one of them responded to this parade, even after offering them a monetary gift or reward to bring them into our parade. We're going to do it again this year.
Include Lancaster Catholic.
Lancaster Catholic, I called them. Unfortunately, they do not parade anymore. I talked to the band director. He said with everything that they have going on, they can't commit themselves to parade. So I was fine. He was the only one to commit. And I talked to him personally.
Well, they have a new band director this year,
Oh, they do?
Mr. Merlot.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I'll maybe contact him. Maybe we'll be lucky enough to
Yeah,
get
it's a younger lady.
But I mean, we're trying to build this thing back up. Since COVID hit, we lost one of the biggest bands. If we have bands come into this town, okay, and it rains, we still have a tank. Westminster Band was the biggest parade in Westminster, Maryland. A huge band, okay? And we were paying them $1,300 to come up, and we would pay them for their bus and for their fees. And it was only 2 years ago, the first time since I've taken this parade over in 28 years, that we actually made a call to cancel the parade because of rain. So we sat, I always take my committee out for breakfast at 8 o'clock in the morning that Sunday morning. And we sit there and we were at the Catholic Board that day, and we looked, and this big, huge band of rain was supposed to come up into Columbia and hit at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, that's when we started our Memorial Day service up in the park. So the committee made a commitment to call the parade. So we went back to my office, we started making phone calls, we called Westminster and said, don't come. Called the rest of them and said, don't come. 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm sitting in my house by the pool, and the sunshine came out. It didn't rain one drop, but we had to call it, because if they would come up, we had to pay, okay? So, we're trying to build that up again. We're trying to take it from 4 to 6 divisions, but I made my dad a promise before he passed away that as long as I draw breath and life from this, there will be a Memorial Day parade, and there will be an 11-11-11 Club Memorial Day banquet every year. And I made that commitment, and I'm going to stick with the commitment. But we appreciate what you folks have given the Memorial Day parade, the money that you've given to help us defray the expenses that we have. But we're just hoping to kind of build it up a little bit more and continue the Memorial Day parade. So, any questions?
I'm assuming the ask for the Mount Bethel Cemetery is $5,000.
I didn't ask for it, you gave it to me.
That's what we've historically been giving, yes.
Yeah, I didn't ask for it. You gave it to me. It's very much appreciated. I mean, it's put to good use, because our expenses and so forth are, we just cashed in a CD to put into the general account, because contributions are not coming in as fast as they did. But we'll be okay this winter, and probably all next year. So.
Do schools in our area have ROTC classes?
Do what?
Do they have ROTC classes anymore?
In the high schools?
Yeah.
They did, but I don't know if Columbia High School does it.
Wouldn't it be cool to have them march in the parade with the veterans?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
I'd love to have it.
that'd be nice.
We actually went, we got a bus that we were gonna go up to Lebanon, Veterans Hospital and bring veterans down just to sit in the bus,
Oh, yeah.
okay? But it just didn't pan out last year.
I know I've seen the young Marines.
Oh, yeah, they're there. But COVID just killed us. I mean, I can't get Westminster back because they committed themselves to a local county parade down there because this is how they make their money. This is the only way they make their money is parading. And when we called COVID off, and we told them, and I called them back the next year, I called the guy who was in charge of their band, and he said, unfortunately, their parade at this county, or the local county parade was the same time as ours, and they committed to it. And I don't think we'll ever get it back. So that's why we're working on the local high school to try to get them. I even worked on the York Kilby band. We're trying to get them to commit to the Memorial Day parade. So
Did you try the universities like Millersville or Elizabethtown?
no, to be honest with you, I have not. No, we were kind of concentrating on the high school.
Yeah.
Well, at the time of Memorial Day parades, the universities are usually out of session, so.
That's true. So, folks, we're trying our hardest to get this parade built back up again, to where it was, and, we haven't given up hope.
Any other questions, comments, concerns for the Veterans Council? All right.
I just have one more. What about the veteran organizations in Columbia? Do they give you donations?
They do. We have, depending on how many spots or how many, divisions we have, they usually give $250 to each division. I had one organization, that gave us $500 this year for 2 divisions, but we only had 4 divisions this year. So they do make contributions, yes, they do. And I guess they did it from their small games of chance or something, but they have, given us contributions. Most of the contributions, we used to do booklets and ask local businesses to take an ad out for $25, $50, $75, and we'd have 700, 800 booklets, and then we would sell them downtown for $2. No one would buy them. So we just did away with the booklets, and now we're in the process of locating or contacting local businesses by letter and asking them to make contributions to the parade so that we can keep this thing going. It can't stop. It cannot stop. We can't forgive or forget what these veterans have done for us. We cannot do that.
Thanks, Kevin.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate Mark putting me on back-to-back on the agenda. So the two folks know I didn't ask to be first. But I'm glad it is because I've been at a long day. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Again, we appreciate everything you folks have done for both organizations. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Next, we have Columbia Cat Action Team.
Hey, good evening, council. Thanks for having me tonight. And I'm feeling a little under the weather, so I'm probably going to leave right after this, and I apologize if I'm not as chipper as I usually am. But I got the information together that Mark had requested. I have it in a document. I didn't have time to print it. I can email it to you, Heather, or whoever to forward around to the rest of the council.
You can send it to me.
What's that?
Send it to me and I'll send it out.
Okay, perfect. So, who we are and what we do. Columbia Cat Action Team was formed to help decrease the feral cat population in Columbia Borough in a humane and ethical way through TNR, which stands for Trap, Neuter, and Return, and when appropriate, getting cats off the street. We were originally a subcommittee formed by the borough in June of 2022 and transitioned to being a subcommittee of the animal shelter, the Columbia Animal Shelter, in April of 2023. In 2022, 90 cats went through our program. So far this year, 2023, 164 cats have gone through our program, and we're on pace for 196 by the end of the year. Since the inception of our program, we have touched 271 cats. That's 271 cats that we either sterilized and returned to the street, or cats that were brought in and rehomed, like, in a house, not outside, no longer being feral. Most of those rehome cats were kittens. We've also been tasked with registering colonies for the borough for tracking purposes and to ensure that participants are compliant with Columbia's revised feeding ordinance. To date, we've registered 13 colonies. And we are a volunteer group and run solely off of donations and fundraising. So no one that's on our team is paid. We're all donating our time and effort. How funds would benefit the TNR effort? The funds we're requesting this year would go towards TNR efforts. We're planning on using these funds to pay for TNR procedures and surrendering litters of kittens. The shelter has been donating services to us, but with the increase in the cost of everything, especially vaccines, this is not sustainable. Also, CAS is not our only provider. We also use the York SPCA, Lancaster SPCA, and Pet Pantry. And then this is the budget part. 2024 budget. We're estimating 200 cats coming through our program next year. And based on numbers that we've had the past 2 years, I'm calling that 128 TNR cats and 72 kittens or 24 litters of kittens. Usually when we surrender a litter of kittens, the average size is 3. So 24 or 72 divided by 3 is 24. That's how I came up with 24 litters. TNR for 128 cats will cost us $6,400. Surrendering 72 kittens or 24 litters will cost $960. This brings our estimated procedure expenses in 2024 to $7,360. Additional expenses such as traps, food, disposable litter pads, and other medical procedures not including TNR will be covered by our fundraising efforts. Thanks for your time and consideration and support. If the borough chooses to donate this year, please make check payable to Columbia Cat Action Team. Somehow it got switched to Columbia Animal Shelter on the agenda, or the last thing I saw released by the borough. We have our own separate account, so if there is a donation, we'd like it to go to Columbia Cat Action Team, be made out to us directly, not to the shelter. I'm sure there's going to be questions, so I will open it up to you guys.
Do you have a specific amount that you're hoping to get?
$7,360.
Did you already say that?
I did not.
Oh, okay.
And I understand that that's what we're going to spend on just TNR procedures. So that's solely the cost of taking kittens, surrendering them to the shelter. They're $40 a litter, depending on how big the litter is. And then we're paying $50 for the TNR procedure. So there's other things we spend money on, there's other expenses we incur. We're not asking for any help with that stuff. We're just asking for help with the actual TNR procedure and surrendering kittens. So just for the sterilization and getting cats off the street. Any questions?
Question? So you only fundraise for your other costs, not this? Like you don't fundraise to go towards this?
Well, so we got, last year, we exceeded what we were given by the borough last year. So the fundraising goes, like, I'll give you an example. We pay for food with the fundraising stuff. We recently trapped a cat that had an infected eye that needed to be removed. We're not asking the borough to pay for that stuff, so we pay $400 out of our money to do that. Oftentimes we go out and do something for a homeowner. I'd say probably half the time they give us some kind of small donation check at the end. So we probably, I mean, depending on what we get from the borough, we may need to use some of our additional fundraising money to go towards that. But ideally, I kind of broke it down into 2 separate pools, but that's not always how it goes.
What are your other costs?
Traps.
No, I'm saying like the dollar amount, like you have like a number that.
Not really, it's kind
Because that's
of,
what your fundraising is.
it's kind of to be determined, yeah, it's kind of to be determined, and it depends what pops up, like, it's just hard to say. It's hard to say what we're gonna bring in and what we're gonna need to, like, we did a table at All the Utmost Festival over the weekend, and we expected it to go really well, and obviously raining, we came in around $400, which is great, but we're hoping for more, so it's kind of hit or miss. We had a homeowner give us, how much was the large check that we got?
The biggest check?
1,000?
1,000.
Yeah, so it varies, you know what I mean? But we're not, so I just want to make it really clear, whatever the borough gives us, we're not using for stuff that the borough didn't originally agree to cover.
Right, it's only for TNR.
Right. TNR and then the rabies, the vaccines that come with it, but just that TNR package. We're not taking that money and reinvesting it to make sure it's a resale. We're not getting cat's eyes removed or anything like that. That's strictly for the actual procedure that was originally part of the plan.
And initially, some of those medical costs were being paid out of pocket by people who
Probably close to $3,000 or $4,000 paid out of pocket by individual members. So it's gracious, very grateful that they were able to do that. But again, it's just not sustainable. So in lieu of them donating, we kind of taken on the fundraising effort. So I know that this thing has like evolved very much since it started. We were running into issues we never expected. Like we never asked ourselves what happens if we get a cat that needs an iron. You know, it was never part of the original plan. And we have a volunteer animal lover, so like euthanization is not like the popular solution to this kind of thing. So we've had to raise funds to kind of keep volunteers, interested and to like to do the right thing by the animals that are in our care. So we're not going out looking for hurt or injured cats, but sometimes we want to also, within reason, we want to make sure we're handling that the situations that we have had cats euthanized in the last year that were beyond help. If it's something like a $400 eye removal, and you can raise funds to do that, then we're all covered.
And we can't really put, I guess you could, but it would be inhumane to put a cat in that condition back out, like to release it. Knowing that it was
Right,
sick.
something like, if it was something like the cat has a goofy eye or something like that, we'll put it back out. If it's a cat, something that's sick, like I feel right now, or releasing it for a cat is near like, approaching death rapidly, we don't want to put that cat back out, and also to get other cats sick.
When we were talking last year, or 2 years ago, and we discussed the idea of you guys becoming independent, if you will, of the borough. I think the main idea was for more opportunity for fundraising. Knowing that you're asking to increase the amount that we gave last year significantly, how have you worked to increase the fundraising to help cover more of these costs? Because if my math is right, and like you, I'm on drug brain right now with Coleman. So if you're talking about $6,400 for the TNR process, plus whatever the cost is to rehouse the kittens, that's $7,360 is that process, and then all the other costs are food, traps, and everything else above that. Is there the possibility of you guys increasing the fundraising to use some of the fundraising as well towards the TNR?
Absolutely. That would be, like, in the perfect world, I would just come here quarterly and tell you how many cats we've done, and we wouldn't ask for anything. We need volunteers. We need volunteers. Everyone that's involved with this now, I think, is beyond capacity at this point, where no one's willing to take anything else on.
Yeah.
So we're doing what we can with the volunteers we have. We've recently made signs and put around to try to drum up volunteers. We have some momentum. I would anticipate more people coming on board and us being able to increase our volunteer efforts. But that would be, like I said, the cost without fundraising. So I understand that we might not walk away with the check for $7,360, but I just wanted to present what our budget was to have those specific procedures done.
Are you still focused solely within the borough, or now that you're not under the fully under the borough committee, have you expanded out? And you take cats from West Hempfield to another, etc.?
In full transparency, out of those 271, 2 slipped through, one from Wrightsville and one from, right in that place where they went last week.
Stonehouse Lane.
Stonehouse
Somewhere
Lane.
in West Hempfield, I think.
So yeah, we've done one from West Hempfield and one from Wrightsville, kind of unknowingly. But like we have a scheduler now that's come on board, and that's the first question we ask is, what's your address, or even the borough? So we're still focused on just the borough. We've offered advice to other boroughs. We've went traps, like not the borough traps, but our traps. We've done some things like that. Attended other meetings and talked about like our success in Columbia, but like we haven't expanded our reach or actual trapping outside of the Columbia borough, except for twice an accident.
I guess where I was going was, is there a possibility to recruit some volunteers from outside of the borough and then approach some of the adjacent municipalities saying, hey, we have a good model, it's successful now, we've been doing a good job. We can expand out and then maybe go to West Hempfield, go to Manor Township, go to Mountville and say, hey, listen, with a contribution, a buy-in to our program, if you will, and with our outreach to get some more volunteers, maybe we could expand out, which may ultimately help that budget.
I fully agree. We're short on volunteers.
Yeah.
Right now, we're working on the wait list. So like we have people that may be waiting 4 to 6 weeks for us to even get out there.
Right.
And there's such a concentrated, overwhelming problem right in this area And the whole thing with this is momentum. Like, I know Todd did a research project in 2022, and like once a cat gives birth, within 6 months, those kittens can get pregnant. So it just snowballs so fast. So with our limited resources, I'm hesitant to take any of our trapping efforts outside of the program. Because I don't want to lose. I don't know if anyone's noticed, but it seems like there's less cats. There's certainly less calls coming into codes. I can say, so I feel like we're making a big dent, definitely having an
You
impact.
definitely are, and I guess it's a bit of pride, if you will, that I think this started out as a great idea, and it has panned out to really truly be a good idea and a great idea. And maybe this model could be replicated to help out, even on the fringe areas, but also then to help with your budget to say, hey, a little more support may go a long way. That's all.
Yeah, I've heard, understood, like absolutely. We're really just in the, right now we just have enough volunteers to function as we are. But the goal is always to advertise meetings, try to attract people, recruit people. We have people show up, we have people fall off, and we kind of sit at the same volunteer number consistently. Since we've started till now, we've grown exponentially, but the last 6 months or so it's been kind of slow just with new volunteers showing up for it. There's only so many people that are interested in rolling their sleeves up and getting involved in this, So,
We do know.
yeah.
And
We're
if
trying.
could I just add a few things to that?
Absolutely.
The volunteers, as Frank comes to some of the meetings, and he mentioned too, the volunteers never ask for money for gas. They're driving cats all over the place, to York, to Lancaster. They don't ask for anything. And it is a lot of physical work, and I will say that it is, as I've said a million times, a community service. And I think if we end up branching out, I think we may end up with more cats to trap than we have volunteers to go all these places, and we're going to lose the focus on the borough. And why we started here was resident complaints about the cats. So that's why we started the program, and that's what we were trying to address, quality of life issues for people that didn't want them in their yard and running around and destroying property. So I think we got to keep that in mind, that this isn't just something we started for fun. It's something we, because actually there's not a lot of
Quite
fun in
the opposite.
it.
It's very much a second job.
Yeah, I mean, the kittens are cute and all, but it's a lot of work. And I fear that if we branch out too much, we're not going to get the money we think we're going to get. And we're going to maybe lose volunteers, or they're going to be stretched to the limit and they're not going to want to help. So I don't know, that's my 2 cents on it, but.
Off topic, we have been trying to utilize, the shelter has a separate volunteer list from ours that we've been having them send communications out to try to garner more support. And if the borough has a similar volunteer list, if you guys have a little list like that, I would love to be able to have you guys support some communications with them so we can get more volunteers, but people from the actual community.
We don't have a set volunteer list. I think it's something that we struggle with too, getting people to volunteer for boards and committees, etc. I just know oftentimes it's the personal invitation to pick somebody on the line, not just a call for a need. It's that, hey, I know you love cats, I know you love parks, I know you're concerned about this or that. Will you join this said committee? So I think it's just kind of beat the bush and finding it. I say again, I think it's a great program. I think it's doing what we wanted it to do, and I just want to see it stay successful.
And we have about a dozen, I'd say, regular volunteers, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, that show up to the meetings regularly.
And it's a little different than just showing up to a meeting, taking some notes. I mean, you're physically out doing it.
Crawling around in the grass in the morning, at night, driving all over. It's labor intensive for sure. People are volunteering their homes, their garages, people go to their garages for this. So we're definitely appreciative of the people that we have, and we can certainly use more volunteers. Any other questions?
Thank you for what you put together tonight.
Oh.
To present.
Thanks for the
Because
invitation.
I know you meet with Tammy at the shelter a lot too, so thank you, Alan.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, I know this was a long time ago, but wasn't there a conversation about collaborating with the animal shelter, Columbia Animal Shelter, to cut down the cost of the neutering and spaying?
Yeah, that's what they've done.
Oh, they did do it, okay.
They did do that, but I wish I should have invited Tammy tonight, but with everything that's happened in the world in the past couple of years, the prices that they're paying for vaccines have doubled, like over 200%, where we're getting a lot, like we have been getting, if you notice, when we first started this program, before I came on board, it was just a drop off to the shelter kind of thing. The shelter never sent an invoice to the borough, and that wasn't on accident, that was by design. They wanted to donate their services. They're no longer in a position to really do that. Just their costs and overhead is skyrocketed. All right, if there's nothing else, we're gonna, Frank. Thank you.
Mark, when you said reach out to other areas outside Columbia, are you maybe saying that we ought to do trapping there too, or we could do trapping there too?
Yeah, I think, Frank, the idea was if we could expand the program, and I think it's been explained well that right now the focus is to stay in the borough, but my thought was if the program could be expanded, it might increase the volunteer base and increase the potential for raising more money, that's all.
Yeah, I like the idea, but I know of other areas outside close, and there's a lot of cats, and they have nowhere to go with them, and they don't want to pay that full price to get it done. What's the total that we have in that program as of this year?
We budgeted $6,600 last year, and that's what we're proposing to roll forward this year. But that hasn't been decided yet by council. That's kind of what this meeting is about, is to talk through these donations that we make to different organizations.
Okay, so far you're saying we give them 6,400. How do you figure in the traps and the other things that was bought?
It all came out of that budget line.
Yeah, that's how we did it the first time. All that came out. I mean, we committed much less than that, and it just kept increasing because of the success of the program. That's kind of what Alan was saying. That's the struggle they have, is that our money right now is paying just for the TNR services. They have to then raise money to maintain the traps and buy new ones, to get the food they have, to pay for all the other ancillary costs that come with this whole program.
Yeah, and I'm in favor of what you suggested there, because I even have another area that there's cats, and I can't bring them home because that's not part of our program to do that. And I hate to even bring it up, because if we're short volunteers, for them saying, expand the program, but if we get more volunteers out, it would be good. Thank you.
All right. Public library.
If you don't know who I am Steve Shirk, and I am the president of the board of directors for the Columbia Public Library. And I thank you for having me here. I'd like to present a little bit of a presentation. If anybody knows me, you know that I can talk for hours, especially about the library, because it is a very special thing to me. My wife was in love with the library, and she played a major part in the new renovations and the additions 5 years ago, and before her passing, she asked me if I would take her place on the board, and that's how I got to be on the board of the library. So it is a special thing for me. What I'm going to do is just, a lot of people, they say, well, what all does the library do? Because a lot of people just think it's a building where you go in, you look for a book, you take a book, you check it out, and that's what a library is. But in Columbia, here are just some of the services that we provide for the people of Columbia and the people of the Columbia community, the outside area. We make copies if you want copies made. We make faxes. We'll laminate anything you bring in that you want laminated. We have public computers. We currently just bought some more, so now we have 10 of them that are up and running. And in fact, that's such a popular thing that this year we had to limit how long you could be on the computer, because we had people that were literally coming in and signing on. and staying on for hours. So now when you come in, you have to check in with the desk if you want to get on the computer, and then they basically start a clock on you, and you have 1 hour on the computer. And then at the end of that hour, you have to go off, and if you want to come back in an hour or two later, you can. That's a very popular service that we have. We now have STEM kits. Don't ask me what it is, I don't know. Other means science, I think technology, engineering, and math. They're kits that, just like a book, you can come in, see what all we have. You can pick one, take it out, sign it out, and take it home, and do it with your family or whatever. We have different programs that we run. We have a crocheting thing. We have 2 book clubs that we have going. We have Civil War lessons and demonstrations that we do. I think every time I turn around, we're bringing more critters in the building, all kinds of animals for people to come in and eat. One of the biggest programs we started this year, and I never thought it would go over the way it does, or did, is Touch a Truck. And we have garbage trucks. They love garbage trucks. We have fire trucks. We have police cars. We have big tractors. We have big lawnmowers that have come in. The kids just love it. So that's a program that we have. We have a school partnership with OLA and with also Park and Taylor, where we send a staff member into the school. She hooks up with the librarian. They go into different grades, different classrooms, and sit down and read with the kids. And that's a great program, and the kids seem to enjoy it. And in fact, we had 2 people. We sort of had a little in-house fight because we had 2 people on the staff that wanted to do it. So we had to decide who was going to take that over. We have a reading education assistance therapy dog. One of the biggest dogs you'll ever see, but I promise you he's the most laid-back dog you'll ever run into. His name is Jaeger. Jaeger comes in, lays in the middle of the floor. The kids crawl on him, they pet him, they dress him up, they read books to him, and it's just a program. Again, the kids love Jaeger. Jaeger or Jaeger. That's a good program. We have Career Link representatives coming in on Monday from 10 to 5 p.m. They help with people that want to get their GED, people that are trying to figure out how to handle themselves at a job interview. They'll sit down and work with them on that, try to figure out maybe what would be a good field for them to go into to look for a job. We have a bank person that comes in every so often and teaches them how to make budgets, how to handle their finances, what kind of savings accounts or checking accounts that they should deal with. So we have all kinds of programs that are always going on. There's always something going on at the library. And you can go on our website to see what we have coming up, or you can get on social media, on Facebook, because it's always posted there too. This year, I was a little concerned this year because Lisa Grable decided that she was going to retire. So we had to come up with someone to take over running the library, and we came up with a Columbia girl, born and bred, Heather Peters Berry. And I was a little concerned when I wonder how Heather's going to do with this, because, this is brand new to her. I got to tell you, she hit the ground running, and she has done a fantastic job. She has the library really going. Last Thursday, I wanted to give you some statistics so you knew, what's going on at the library. Last Thursday at our board meeting, Heather gave us her report for September. Now, September, there were 25 days that we were open. And this just this amazes me every month that she reads these figures all to them, because I sit there and I wonder, how is that possible? This past September, 4,472 books were taken out of the library in that month. That's a lot of books, think about that. Also, another program we have, let me inject this here. If you come into the library and you want a book, and you can't find it, and you come up to the desk, and the desk person says, we're out of it right now, but they're all gone. Rather than having you walk out without that book or any idea when you can get it, they get on the computer. I can't get on the computer. They get on the computer. They'll find that book in a library in Lancaster County. They will put a reserve on that right away. And within one day, we will have that book in Columbia for you to pick up and take to read. But it also works the other way. If Lancaster City's hunting a book and they see that we have it, they'll put a request into us and we'll pull that book and send it down to them. So it's amazing the things that go on in that library. New materials added in September, there are 288 new books. New patrons that were added that didn't have a library card until September last month was 56. 56 new patrons got a library card. Computer usage, and this is pretty amazing. The computers were logged on to 685 times in the month of September. 955 different patrons, not 955 people, came up to the desk and took a book out. 955 different library cards were used in the month of September to check out an item or a book. 470 patrons attended different programs during the month. And 167 take and make craft bags were taken out. Now that makes me laugh because what you have to realize is every month some poor person of our staff has to cut out 167 different crafts and stuff them into a bag so that we have the bag to hand out. So, I mean, that's just, obviously they're not standing around, they're not doing anything at the Columbia Public Library. I was asked to bring a budget. So, the budget for 2023 was $248,625. $248,625. I'll get it. Now, in the year of 2023, we got $5,000 from the borough. We were promised $10,000 by the county. However, they went back on that and reduced it to $6,000. And we got $69,000 from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. If you add that all together, that comes up to $80,000. You subtract the $80,000 off of our budget, and that left us responsible. I'm hunting my figures here. That made us responsible to come up with $168,625. What we depend on, and we couldn't do without, is the generosity of the businesses in town, some of the people and families in this town. We have one business, I'm not going to mention names because they wouldn't want it mentioned, every year, and in fact, they contacted us about 3 weeks ago, and they said, do you have a figure for us this year? Every year, they come to us and say, how much money do you need for your summer programs for the kids? And we come up with a figure, and they sit there and they write a check for us. This past year, 2023, that was $3,500. They just wrote us a check and said, have fun. So, I mean, that's the stuff that we depend on. We are lucky that every now and then we get someone who passes away that remembers the library in their estate. We depend on that. Our big fundraiser for the year is our art auction, which we've had now for 3 years. We also had the extra gift. We did fairly well on that last year. I think it was a little over $10,000 we took in last year on the extra gift. So we depend on donations. That's the only way we're staying where we are. The borough, as I said, prior to 2018, every year, the borough was giving us, granting to the library $10,000. And we appreciated that. Then we came up with the renovations and the additions and whatnot, and we started a capital campaign, finance campaign. And we went to the borough and businesses and said, can you help us? And the borough was generous and came up and said, we will pledge $25,000. We were happy about that. However, the borough said, the way we're going to do this, for the next 5 years, we're going to make a payment of $5,000. So that's what the borough's been doing for the last 5 years. And in 2023, you made your last payment. So you have satisfied that $25,000 pledge. But that also decreased your grant in half for the last 5 years. So that brings us to 2024. I made some calls and was doing a little bit of checking with some of the other libraries in the area. E-Town Borough is going to be asking E-Town for $20,000. Ephrata Library is asking for $26,000 from Akron and $40,000 from Ephrata Borough. Mountville Library, now you have to understand the Mountville Library is a branch of the Lancaster City Library. So most of their funding comes from Lancaster City. But I just read this in the paper this morning, that they were at a council meeting in Mountville just recently and asked for a donation from Mountville Borough. But they wouldn't tell me how much it was, so I can't tell you how much they asked for.
Maybe it was open-ended.
Elizabethtown, I don't know if I mentioned, Elizabethtown is asking for $20,000. I'm here tonight to ask you for $15,000 for the year 2024. I'm also here to share with you, I don't know if you're aware of this, I can tell you that we were not aware of it, and by we I mean the library board of directors here in Columbia. We were not aware that this is taking place, but it is, it's in the works. E-Town Library and Ephrata Library along the Lancaster County Library system are starting a program where in May 20, 2025, on the election, on the ballot, they want a referendum question to all the citizens in Lancaster County approving a library tax. They want the tax to be 1/3 of a mil, which they estimate would cost each individual person anywhere from $61 to $75, depending, I guess, on what your property would be assessed at. They've also come up with a figure, and I find this to be interesting, based on responses from the different libraries in Lancaster County, what we projected our budget would be in 2025. That the dollar amount per person, not just adults, per person, kids and adults, to fund all the libraries in Lancaster County so that they didn't have to borrow money, didn't have to figure out where to come up with money, would cost $29.32 per person. So that, I mean, you can figure out, with what you're going to grant to the library this year, how much of that $29 you're making out. What's the borough, 10,000 people? So if you go with 10,000, last year the 5,000, you gave us 50 cents per person. So I have all this paperwork here. Do you want me to give it to you, Mr. Stivers?
That'd be great. And I'll copy and get it out, scan it and get it out to everybody.
Okay. Any questions? I'm not here trying to ask you for any more money than I think that an exorbitant amount. I'm just
Let me
trying
tell you,
to say
I think that the library is one of the hidden gems in this community. It provides so many programs to our youth and all the way through, it's cross-generational. You got the knitting classes going on and the crochet classes going on and the book clubs and everything.
We just had a program last month. People came in. They showed us how to make homemade apple cider, and we made it and then we drank it. 93 people attended that. They were having a heck of a good time.
Well, and I mean, you think about the statistics. What they say is the biggest indicator of adult, achievement is literacy by 3rd grade. And if children aren't literate by the 3rd grade, their chance of success as an adult is significantly decreased. And everything that you guys are doing for the youngest kids is doing nothing but helping that literacy rate, and that's definitely.
Heather just started, we always had what we called preschool pals.
Yep.
And I mean, that is going great this year. They're running anywhere from 30 to 40 kids every time. Over the summer, they set up outdoor water games for them, and they love that. She started this year. She came and said, "Can I start a program?" And I think she called it Tiny Tales or Tiny Tots. It's kids day 1 to 2 years old. And we thought maybe we'd get 10. We got 30 some of them every month or every week.
The best way to get a kid interested in reading and lifelong learning is to read to them when they're young.
I thank you for your time.
Yes, Frank.
Yeah, Steve.
Yeah, you.
That's our sheriff.
Oh, okay.
These people don't know him. He was one of our patrolmen for years until he retired. How many years, Steve?
32.
He was plus the borough. But anyway, is there a fee to check a book out?
No. Not a fee. Unless you don't bring it back. And then what I will tell you happens, we get people in there that come back with the book and they say, look, I owe this. And I think it's $10 a day for every day it's over. Most of them are usually less than $1. If you got the $1, we'll take it. If you don't, give me the book and we're even.
Very good. Well, I'll just say this, from knowing him way back, I'm glad that he's on the board. I would feel safe that everything is in order. And just listening to your report.
We'll give you more credit than you said.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
I believe you guys all got it. We got a spreadsheet that looked at different donations for 2022. It for the library, it ranges from, I think ours is about 49 cents per capita. I think it goes up to the highest is about $8 per capita. So it's something to consider. I mean, to me, it's a valuable resource in the community. I understand that every penny counts as we go into this budget. That's something we'll look at. I think feels like we're a little below average from what other communities do.
I think that's low.
That stack of papers I gave you, Mark, there's 4 pages in there of research they've done to get ready for this ballot question. Read over that because it's very interesting, some of the figures they've come up with. They're not going to drop this. I fully expect in 2025 you're going to see that ballot question, and I guess it's just going to be up to the voters if it goes through or not.
Just to give you an idea, if that does go through, I was doing some quick math. Based on the current property values from 2023 that we used for this year's budget, a third of a mil would be about $146,000 from Columbia Borough.
Well, and it's understood. One of the things they explained to us on Thursday was, if this would go through and would pass, we will no longer be coming to Lancaster County asking for money, Columbia Borough asking for money. I don't know about the Commonwealth. I don't know if the Commonwealth would be exonerated after, if that went through or not. I don't think, because it's a county issue, not a statewide issue.
Right.
But read that paper because it's interesting. When they started that meeting, I gotta tell you, I was dead set against it because I thought, look, we're busting our butts trying to keep this library going and trying to keep it running and trying to give service so that people can come in and basically not spend a dime and get whatever they want to get out of it. So I wasn't too much in favor of it. But the more they talked about it and they explained it, I gotta tell you, I think it might be a good idea because we could spend more energy doing even more because we wouldn't have to worry about where we get the money to do this.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Heather, how much is a mill in Columbia Borough?
Generates about 440,000,
About that.
roughly.
Thank you very much.
All right, and Chris, you get.
You better not put a timer on that.
Oh yeah, let me get that out. You get 3 minutes.
Oh, right there.
3 minutes and 30 seconds.
There you go.
Okay, we'll compromise.
Thanks. I just want to first thank everybody. The contributions the Nashville Columbia Borough has given us as a museum. With cost, temperature control, everything like that, keeping our history basically preserved. When I walked in 2009 and everything was covered in mold, I spent $40,000 just in mold cleanup. It was tough to see our beautiful objects sitting in ruins. Did not want to throw one picture away back in 2009. I made sure everything was safe. I still have stuff wrapped in thick-film plastic, so it doesn't go, once we get the money to preserve that piece. I actually have an original 1895 Hotel Locust checklist book, so the first one at Hotel Locust. But that's still sitting in thick-film plastic. It'll probably cost about $5,000 to $10,000 just to clean that one book. So so very expensive. But, you know, about six or 8 years ago, I used to sit in here, about 20 nonprofits were sitting here, no lie, and we would sit for hours. Everybody going through, do you remember some of you?
Oh, yeah.
You remember that, don't you? And it was grueling, I mean, it was grueling. And I remember the Columbia Borough Fire Company came up and asked for $672,000. So I'm asking for that for tonight. Thank you very much.
Oh, no.
I missed the number, sorry.
Yeah. Gotta put decimal
I
points
think
on
you said
that.
$5. 62.
So, but like I said, you know, our actions down at the museum we have some of the best volunteers I could ask for down there who have been with me for over 10 years. Our goal is to preserve everything, but also for genealogy, research. We currently have over 15,000 photos of Columbia. We're actually digitizing everything right now, all our photos. The Columbia Spy, we have that digitized from 1832 up until 1915. Columbia News, that's almost finished. From 1895, we're up in the 1980s right now. That's going to be, you can walk into our research area and actually look up all the newspapers, clippings, everything's digitized, word search. So we are really doing a fine job of the research part of our town. When I say archival deposit, that means people are dropping things off, and it can be higher. That's current right down to this year. So when a session piece comes in, that goes into our session. So it's every year we're taking in stuff. I even have 2 temperature-controlled storage units. One has over 1,200 bank ledgers that came out of the bank in 2010. They're preserved. It's all temperature controlled every day. Also, the original Columbia News books we have out in another unit. Plus, I actually have another museum. If anything ever happens down here, we have another museum sitting out in storage. So all objects are not ruined. So we do keep that stuff out there. So like the Civil War items, things like that, so nothing happens to them at the museum down here. In case of water leaks, anything like that. Of course, the event visitation, you know, that's down from this year because of Albert Twitch this past weekend. We should have been 6,000 to 8,000. Those numbers are down, but we had the visitation this past weekend was good for what we had. So the trolley tours, of course, they never give up. The 29 we did this past year, we packed those trolleys. Even this past weekend, Albert Twitch was amazing how many people came out to ride the trolley. 6 out of the 8 were completely full. So, Lower Susquehanna Model Railroad, they are a new group in our museum. So they took over the lower level. The upper level, as you see, they are rewiring everything. They spent over $4,000 out of their own donations to rewire the whole display, which is over 2,500 square feet. It's an amazing, if you have never been up to that railroad display, that is one of the best gems we have in Columbia right now. The lower level, they spent $30,000 of their own money, all donation based out of their own members. My goal and our goal down at the museum is to turn that museum into a model railroad museum to attract more people downtown in our district. That is what we're missing downtown right now. You could have went down there yesterday. There's a big TCA show if you're a train person. Big train enthusiasts all across America come to this show in York. Well, last night, if you would have went to the museum, you would have met people from California, Michigan, Ohio. They were all having pizza and drinking beer and running trains. I mean, that's a guy thing, of course, you know. But to see these people come the whole way to Columbia to visit our museum, that's what we were looking for, to attract those out-of-towners into our museum. So, our volunteer list, that's a low number, 18. Actually, the Lower Susquehanna has 35 volunteers at any given time. The upstairs, they have 12 volunteers, and our regular museum historians, things like that, we're at 8 right now. So the volunteer base is a lot higher than it looks. So I just put down 18 that we can really see at the museum at one given time. So, just switch it, Mark. These are 2 events, Columbia Railroad Day, which is going to eventually get bigger and bigger. We're coming up with new ideas. We're going to probably do a train show next year. So that's our goal, a big train show, possibly at the Market House.
I ran one back in 2010 over at the Market House, which drew almost 1,000 people. Had 26 vendors. I did that whole show. Plus we had our museum running too at that time. And of course, Albatwitch Day, which just keeps on growing, our 10th year. These are two big events for the town. Like I said, when that trolley runs, it drops off people. I made sure that on Saturday that they came by the Market House, come by, got something to eat, go do dungeon tours, things like that. So our goal is to bring commerce, bring people into this town. But like I said, turning that museum into a model railroad museum, we're still looking at the history part. Don't get us wrong. We're going to put displays up in the other building. But we definitely we see a bigger attraction for the model railroad. That is a hot item right now. Not just young to old. You can go next, Mark. So this is last year's poster. We're working on this year. It'll be 10th year for Ed King Memorial Model Train. This is where pre-COVID, we were open 1 to 4. We were seeing anywhere between 300 to 400 people in those 3 hours. So we're expanding those hours this year from 10 to 5. And we're going to run a Friday night too. So Saturdays and Sundays, 10 to 5 this year. We're expecting a lot more people. So we're going to do more heavier advertising, things like that, to attract more people to see our displays. I think this is crucial to bring people downtown, and that's why we believe that turning the museum into a model railroad display is probably the best interest for the town, plus the money we have invested in, of course.
Is there any history, Chris, with the railroad in this community? Did we ever have railroad here?
Like I said, there's nothing like our railroad history here in this town, but it just gets bigger and bigger. And my researchers, I have to say, I have some of the best researchers in Pennsylvania. Like Pete Green's one of my directors. He's out in California, but he's Californian. He's not out there just to pan gold, whatever he's got to do out there. He's looking for stuff from Columbia. He's looking for like paintings that he knows are out there. He goes out to the museum looking for the stuff just for Columbia, and he'll buy that stuff. I've sent him to colleges. I've sent him other research areas, Philadelphia, and he'll travel there just to find that little tiny piece of history we're looking for. Like William Wright, the pioneer of the Underground Railroad. I say go find me a picture of William Wright, because we were in dispute with Gettysburg who the William Wright is. And he found it with the Swarthmore College, and there was an actual photo of William Wright from Columbia, which is rare. And he dies in 1847. So this is the type of stuff that we do, major research. That's our number one goal, is to bring more research in. Since I've been there for 14 years as president, we have broken so many grounds in history for this town. It's just amazing. Before I got there, really, we didn't know much about our history. Now we added Stephen Smith, William Whipper, all these Underground Railroad people, the Albatwitch, all these things that make us who we are today. And I think it brings in more people to understand our history is alive. Like I said, I rank as top 5 in America right now. I don't think anybody can touch us, how historic we are. So, and we just keep on building. So that's my main goal. So Zion Hill, and we appreciate all the work we've done there. Right now we're waiting for the results for the ground penetrating radar. They should be coming up in probably hopefully by the end of the week. My fence post digger is ready to go to put the new panels in. They're sitting in my garage. The new benches will be going in hopefully by the end of the week once they get the results back. So we are almost finished with that project. Hopefully by the end of the year. So then we'll get to phase 2. Zion Hill still has a long way to go. Like the back property behind the woods, we know that we're trying to, Mark and I were working on that, trying to obtain all that land in the back. I think Columbia Borough would be a great piece of land to get the back in the back there. And also Jansen's Park. I also sent the ground penetrating radar, the geophysicists up to that property to see if there's any bodies in Jansen's Park left over from when they transferred them out in 1920. So we definitely want to put if there is bodies still there, we definitely want to put a memorial there, and also help out Mount Bethel too. So I turned Mount Bethel on a couple of new places they can get grants and things like that for. So that's our main goal. Now for our budget, I attached to the back, our budget used to be anywhere between $26,000 and $28,000 a year. That's tough when you're doing fundraising. You have to understand my temperature control. I am radical when it comes to temperature control, humidities inside the building. This year, I did not touch 55% humidity. It's usually 60 is when you're getting to that teetering part. I never hit 55 this year, which was amazing for even the hot days. I know the humidity thing is like, but you have to understand, if it hits 60% and the temperature fluctuation, that means our archives go downhill and they can mold, things like that. And then I'm trying to protect everything we have, our assets and everything for the borough. So I guarantee we probably have about 40,000 objects in stock. It's a lot. I need a warehouse, honestly, but we do what we have. We keep it clean upstairs, so the best we can do with the museum. But like I said, the fundraising, we do our best on the fundraising, like Alba Twitch. You know, I have to spend money to make money on Alba Twitch. This weekend, believe it or not, we did $3,000 at my stand. T-shirt sales and trolley tickets. Now, I had to pay for the trolley, of course, so we made around $1,900, but we still have bills to pay from the bands, things like that. So, but not bad for that day. So, our gas bills and electric bills have gone down considerable. We were paying anywhere between $7,000 to $8,000 a year on gas bills about 4 years ago. Those gas bills were so high. And of course, I have 3 units in those 2 buildings, and being, like I said, temperature control all year long, I have to spend the money. I don't want to drop, I don't ever want to turn off those leaders. Years ago, before I got there, they used to turn the heat off in the museum, but then they would, springtime would come and that fluctuation made everything moldy inside the museum. So we don't want to go through that again. That was a horror film. So, but what you guys give, the borough gives us every year, the $5,000, we would love to have $100,000, but $5,000 does help us out. We look forward to that every year. It helps us. This year was getting a little tough. We don't know what's going to go on inside the museum with being an old building, pipes breaking, things like that. We still have the old stuff in there, but we have a great volunteer list, and they work on the building, electrical, painting, things like that. So I'm just proud to be a part of them and who they are and what we want to do in Columbia. I only have 1 Columbia person actually volunteering. They all come from all over the different counties to come and volunteer at the museum, which I think is amazing. So, but I have a great group of people. So, any questions? And we do have railroad history. You want me to go for like a 2-hour lecture about that?
No, we're good.
We can start to fill it up.
Eric says no because of Philly.
No questions? But we appreciate you down at the museum of what you've done for us. That's amazing. And like I said, the Zion Hill project, we're all going to be proud of that when it's all finished. All right? Thank you.
So just to jump in quick, one of the things that Chris is helping us with a lot is now that we have our certified local government certification, we are looking at this year going after where we have our grant money to do the resurvey work.
Yes.
But Chris and I are talking about, looking at specific buildings within the community to designate as historic structures.
Yeah.
And one of the ones that we do want to look at is Zion Hill Cemetery is getting on the National Register of Historic Places. They have a special category just for African American cemeteries. So these are other tasks outside of just the regular stuff that we do in partnership with the Historical Society that us and the society are working on together to preserve more of the history in terms of structures, buildings, properties, cemeteries, etc. around the town.
Yeah, especially the Wright's Farmhouse is out of the historic district. And I looked at it, Wright's Farmhouse.
Isn't that near Ninth Street somewhere?
Right on Ninth Street, the white house that sits behind the stone, that is the original Wright's Farmhouse from 1750. So if somebody came in with a wrecking ball, they could take that house down, and we wouldn't be able to protect it. So those type of houses we look at, like we're going to start pinpointing houses that are outside their district that we can tag it as a historic. So put it on the National Historic Registry. So, all right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right. So there we go. That will play into our general fund review the next time we look at that. Fund 18. Tammy, how much do you want me to do? And because I know you're not feeling well.
Yeah, voice, but, well, once everybody pull their Fund 18 up so that you can look at it, there's really not a huge amount, in terms of it's really can't hear me better. There's not a huge amount of changes in there. The BIOS funding for McGinnis has rolled over. We have a small amount. I mean, we haven't got the money for the Maple Park grant either. We're figuring that's going to roll into 2024 as well. And the DEP grant, all these are kind of rollovers, okay? So if you look at, I just want everybody to look at the interest income. As we know, as the Federal Reserve changes the interest rates, the borough has been very fortunate this year that our banking partners have rolled us into better accounts where we're getting a much higher interest yield on our money.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's across the board. We'll look at that when we go back to the general fund the next session, but the interest rates are just much better. That Mark and I talked to our representatives and they put us in a more high yield type account. Not all of them, because the ones we use, like the general fund where we use write a lot of checks, these are for the accounts that you're not taking a lot of money out all the time. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's why that's such a huge increase up there for next year, because I don't see that changing overall. Derek, right? Is Derek working on that grant for this gaming? Okay, so Derek at C.S. Davidson is working on the grant for the Public Works Building, which is the Gaming Act, and what might refresh your memory, that was where the money for the watch and clock came from, was from that grant stream, revenue stream. And then we're also, this has already been applied for, the 158 Riverfront Storm System, the PA Small Water Grant, that's already been applied for. Derek did that. Derek and his team did that, what, a couple months ago?
Yeah, we're still waiting for the results.
We're waiting for the results on that.
So just jumping back to the grant, I put it in there. Those monies have come back out again. There's more and more municipalities that are applying for it, but right now it's not as competitive as it probably will become. So in talking with Derek and Jessica Fieldhouse at C.S. Davidson, we thought we have some good numbers already of what our renovation costs are going to be for the Public Works building that fully fits within the grant criteria. So I said, hey, let's put in for it. Let's get our application in. It's due end of November, I think, this year. So we're going to get something together and have it before council to actually authorize us to go forward. But we want to kind of look at it in the budget now, saying that might be another source that we could look at to help offset the cost of the new Public Works building.
And that's the value of having these projects, having good numbers and everything on these projects before we say, yes, this is what we're doing, because then when something like this comes up, the funding stream comes up, we're able to apply and we're already ahead of the game. And it helps us improve our chances of getting that, from people that are just chasing grants.
Yep, correct. So that's why that's in there. It's definitely not a gimme, but it's what we're going to try to look for and go after.
Yep. Very good. So that is the revenue side of Fund 18.
Kim, just a question.
Sure.
I didn't catch this earlier. The McGinnis BIOS funding.
Yes.
I thought the grant was $3 million.
It is. We put a placeholder in what we think we could possibly spend
in
1
that
year.
year.
Not the total
So
grant
yes,
amount.
it's not the total
Okay,
grant.
because we're only getting the grant to cover what we're spending.
Correct.
We're not getting,
They're
not giving us a blank check.
That's correct. And it's a very streamlined process. So that's kind of our estimate of what's going to be spent in 2024.
Okay, got it.
That's a good question, though.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So now down under some expenditures, the only person, Chief asked for a few things that are, his equipment is very outdated. So I put that in the notes for anybody who, I mean, some of it's like 10 or 15 years old, right, Chief, with your...
EADs are 10 years old.
Yeah, so the technology on them with anything is growing all the time, and we have the quotes, and what I put in the budget is within the quotes that we received. The grinder replacement is over from last year because it's not, we don't have that yet. Yeah. We have spent, as you can see in this, the first phase of McGinnis, we've spent some of that money. We do still have funds available, but we don't expect to spend more than $300,000 in 2024. And then the BIOS grant we're trying to keep that flat. And the park improvements, we didn't do that yet this year, so we're rolling that into 2024. Phase 3, we're almost done with that, so some of it carries in. We're just taking the half that we haven't spent, or about half that we haven't spent. And then the MAKL is what we're going to be spending, plus the money that we get for the grant, and then in-kind work that Jake and his guys will be doing for our portion of that. And then I believe Derek has we did the CDBG, which is going to be 2nd, 3rd, and Union Street this year. And then the 800 block of Chestnut is carrying over also. So we didn't add a lot, nothing extreme. And if you look at, we're actually set to receive more funds than we are going to spend, because that's what that minus number is. If you go to line transfer from fund balance, so we're going to be well within budget for that. Any questions? Sorry.
Nate?
Yes, Nate.
What happened to Perry Street with the CDBG?
Which one, Nate?
Perry Street?
So,
Crossed out.
Yeah, that would, you had me cross that one out.
2nd Street and Perry Street.
Yeah, and Union, the CDBG money from this year.
yeah, so that is what we're doing now. The next year's, which we have been awarded, is Union Street 2nd and 3rd. So that's just that's the one we're doing right
The
now.
reason why, yeah, it's not done yet, but we're not carrying it into
It's not going to carry
2024.
forward. So then we do have a project queued up for next year.
Okay.
Anything else?
First line item, community camera system. Was there ever at any point plans for CCTV in Columbia, or is that?
You'll have to ask Chief that.
We currently have the 50 cameras around the community. Many of the cameras are located in facilities that borough owns. There are large number of cameras that are actually in the community itself, up and down Locust Street and some other key areas.
And you've upgraded them too, right? Some of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could, so the reason why it's crossed out is because it's not going to go into next year. It was put in for this year, so.
One of the things that Chief and I are looking at right now is overall with our IT network, we're dealing with bandwidth-related issues. I think a lot of people in town right now are frustrated because Comcast has kind of been choking down for some reason the last few weeks. We have looked at the possibility of using broadband fiber optic lines coming into the borough, and have talked about connecting some of the cameras that we have that are working off a wireless signal and hardwiring them into the system to improve the connectivity. This would really come into play to improve the security out at Ridge Avenue. There is fiber out there close to that site, so we're looking right now saying, is that wise for us to look at a partnership with Brightspeed and see if getting that sort of connectivity for our camera system would be a benefit to us.
Well, we know how it works out.
Super fast.
Was it? Alright. Tell Michelle to let you know how it works. Michelle's working. Alright, anything else on the capital? No more questions? It's pretty.
So, our next fund is the ARPA fund money. I'm gonna let Mark handle that one, because most of these are his little baby projects. I just manage the money on this one. There you go.
For the ARPA funds, help me, Tammy, we have to, the funds have to be expended at the end of 2025.
December 2025, correct.
They have to be committed.
Committed by 24, spent by the end of 25.
Oh, okay.
Spent.
By the end of 2025.
Yeah.
Right.
So we have been, and we will again, take a chunk of the money and move it over for the lost revenue and help balance out the books for the general fund. But there have been a couple other projects that we do want to use the monies for. One, you'll see it's second to the bottom on that list. We have good quotes now on updating the AV system here in this room. Wilson and I went around and looked at several installations around the county that have used the company that we're looking at. So we're hoping to get a proposal together and get it in. If so, that may be money that would be spent this year, not next year, but get the system upgraded and get it functional so we can get back to, doing more of the streaming, live streaming, etc. that we wanted to be able to accomplish. So that may be an expense coming sooner than later, but it's something I'm going to get done. We are taking the money out of this for the dual band radios that have been ordered.
So they won't be in this year then?
There's still a chance that the police ones will be. We had a second meeting. We have the borough ones on order. There's a chance they can be in by the end of December, but they may not at this point hit until January of next year. Those are the emergency service radios that may also be used by code.
But if we get the invoice as soon as they come in, just thinking about like the logistics of, because it may hit this year, it may not hit this year, right?
So, right, correct. So if we get the invoice in December 15th or the 28th, it won't get paid till January. That's just,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I was just thinking about the timing.
Oh, I know, I think about it all the time.
I know, Tammy.
So the only other thing I want to add on this real quick before Mark goes down the rest is the interest income on this one as well.
Oh, yeah.
We've received almost $100,000 already on the ARPA funds just in interest. That's just this year. And that's another high yield account that we had put up, that our banking partner was.
Been great.
Yeah, we've had a great, they've been great. So I just wanted to note that because that's huge. Because last year was nominal, clearly, because I had $250 in the budget. So it was very nominal last year, but this year we will definitely hit $100,000 this year in interest alone on the ARPA funds. So that's revenue and money in there that we can use that, for the things that we need. So, okay, sorry.
So the other two projects is the Riverfront Storm System. Again, Derek has gone after grant money for that, so it's kind of a placeholder should we need it to get that project done. The Shawnee Mill Street drainage improvements, for those of you not aware, there's an outfall that drains into the stream down there that has collapsed, and so we've been trying to work with the adjacent property owners there to restore that stream from the bridge around the bend at the end and under the railroad track. So that whole stretch there needs some attention. Our portion, our responsibility of that is that collapsed outfall that is right there by the bridge. So that's a project we'll look at getting it done next year. That's all for that one, unless you guys have questions.
No other questions? That's pretty.
Pretty straightforward, yep.
Yep.
I would say it's been just a blessing to have these funds to get some of these other projects done.
Absolutely. So
pretty much at the end of next year, whatever is not spent, we're going to have to spend it or dump it
and go ahead.
in 2025.
So with the resolution that we adopted, the goal would be, if we haven't spent the money on specific projects, we would just simply absorb it into the general fund money as just the lost revenue, which is what we're doing piece by piece for each year. But that would be, if we get to the end and we still haven't put it all towards projects, then we'll just go into lost revenue.
Correct. Yeah.
But
That account will then get closed, and the fund will be closed.
yeah, but we're doing it this way only because everything Tammy and I have heard is there's still a chance the federal government may come back and audit. So we're tracking every penny that's spent out of that account. We're keeping it in there. I mean, we could have moved everything right into the general fund now, but we feel it's best to track the money as long as we can.
Yep.
Just in case we get audited on it.
Yeah, because there's a threshold too, so.
Yeah.
Okay. I can do Fund 30, it's fairly simple.
This is easy.
This one's easy. I mean, it's very stagnant because we're still waiting for the RACP money. Mark and I have went back and forth with
Sandra at 50.
Sandra and, I forget the guy's name at the state. It's a lot. It's a lot.
I don't think I would be too quick to use this funding stream again.
I would not want us to use it unless we had no other funding streams, because and Mark and I have done webinars on it, and we've done workshops on it, and some people, it takes them 5 years to get their money. 5 years. Because there's no rhyme or reason. And they ask for stuff that, like, they didn't ask for the last time, or they didn't ask somebody else for that stuff. So it's been a challenge, I'll say. The nicest way to put it is a challenge. So nothing really this fund has pretty much just stayed stagnant in 2024, and I kind of carried it forward kind of the same way, really.
So, funny story with this, to ensure that we would stop the back and forth, Tam and I, working with Sandra, put a lot of detail into one of the submissions we sent into the state so that they would stop asking questions, stop getting, just here, take all of it. I mean, it was, I had to do actually a file upload to the state so we could get everything transferred over to them. We get an email back, and it's like, well, on this line right here, you said this, so can you explain and break down this $3,000 for kitchen stuff? And I'm like,
yeah,
no. we sent it to you to kind of alleviate, and now they're just going through and they're finding out little nitpick things that they're going through and finding in the information we sent them. So Sandra's like, lesson learned. You sent too much, now they're asking more questions. But I think the last round of information we sent over to them, we're hoping, again, this will be the last one, and things will be wrapped up and closed up.
That's our hope.
And I'll tell you this, I without Sandra's help in getting through all this, this would be just a really difficult thing. I mean, this is what she does as part of her job at CS Davidson, so it's been good to have her as a partner here to get this stuff done.
Absolutely. Okay, so our last one is our liquid fuels fund, and that pretty much, I have all my new numbers already for our allocations. What we got in 2023 was 257. What they project for next year is 254, but they projected 253. So I don't know. The PennDOT does what they want. No, actually, what happens is other municipalities that don't take their liquid fuels, they bring them back in and then they redistribute them across the state. So like if some little county up in somewhere doesn't take their liquid fuels money, they bring it back and then they add it to everybody else's. Yeah, so that's really what happens there. And then as far as the expenses go, Jake and I went over this with like a fine-tooth comb and really been, kept it where it was, and the only thing we put in there, because we do have the option, we have a equipment vehicle allowance. And so Jake and I put in, Jake asked me to put in the purchase of say it for me, hook lift truck, whatever, a hook truck lift,
Jake's been
whatever.
asking for that hook lift truck for like 5
Thank
years
you.
now.
Okay, so we
I know
decided.
it, Jake, I got your back. I know how long you've been asking for that.
Jake
I'm glad he got a zero-turn lawnmower this year.
So the best thing about Jake is he never wants to spend money, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
That is. But we now do have to start spending some of our reserve in our liquid fuels because we're only allowed to carry so much of it every year. And we have a percentage that can be used for the equipment. So I gave him the allowance, and between me and Lisa and Mark, we just kind of nagged him into getting what he needs. So there's what we have for that. So
For those of you who don't know, that's a piece of equipment that allows us to do a variety of things. So it just has a cab and a open back, and you can put different attachments on it as you need it. the truck we're looking at getting would be compatible with the existing equipment that we have, so it would just be replacing the cab and the chassis, and then just keeping the equipment, upgrading little bits and pieces as we need to, and just keep going forward.
So, any questions on liquid fuels or any thoughts? This is a very, this fund is ran very strictly because PennDOT audits us every single year, and all I's must be dotted, all T's must be crossed. But actually, I would say this is my favorite because I know exactly what they need and exactly what they want, and I know exactly what I can do with it. So I would say liquid fuels is my favorite. So
I like it. She sends me a thing. Garlic fuels, everything's perfect.
Yep, everything's done. So did I miss anything, Jake? Okay. Mark, anything you want to add? Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions?
On any of the funds, really?
I don't know if, do you guys know what the liquid fuels is? Should we tell you? Okay, go ahead, Mark.
So every year with the gas tax, the PennDOT looks at the total mileage of public roads you have that meets certain qualifications, and I think it has to be 18 feet wide and the minimum of 250 feet long. Those roads all then would qualify for liquid fuel. So it's just a basic formula where they say, okay, you have this many roads, and take the total pot of the tax money that is collected and divide it by each municipality's road mileage, and that's the percentage you get. So it's a very simple formula. But like Tammy said, each year, if certain people don't do their paperwork right, they don't get their requests in right, they spend money on something they're not supposed to out of liquid fuels, it gets collected back in, and then at a certain time of the year, they'll say, okay, we have an additional funds that will be redistributed out across all municipalities. That happens every year, and sometimes it's more than others, but it's usually not a whole lot.
Well, and you have to be very careful what you put through there. You can't, it's very, very.
Like, for example, on a road project, you can pay for the paving, but you can't pay for curbs.
Unless it's ADA.
ADA ramps.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that.
And like she said, there's only a certain percentage that you can use
for equipment
versus.
And that equipment must be dedicated to road maintenance in some level, so it has to be road maintenance equipment.
I think it's 65% of it must be used for road maintenance.
Yeah.
So
strictly utility.
Yeah.
And it can be used for the traffic lights and the street lights, like the electrical use, but not the actual light itself.
That's correct.
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, we did transfer the utility bills for our street lights into this fund to help the general fund and to help balance out the expenditures on the liquid fuels.
Yeah. So it's pretty clean cut and straightforward. So. All right, that's all I have.
All right. Good. Any questions on the
These are pretty straightforward.
You're welcome.
You're very welcome.
And we're at 8J, we're up to Barb. Barb is going to, several of us had asked questions about the money that Barb was requesting $5,000 for the 3E program, so she put together a little thing for us. So she can tell us tonight what.
Okay, the 3E task force was formed about a year and a half ago, and it was formed for the purpose of developing strategies that would lower the poverty level in Columbia. Like Council President Zink said, I requested a bit more money this year than I did last year, so I'm hoping that this explanation would give you an idea of some of the possibilities that that money could be used for. So Urban Institute's guidelines for alleviating poverty in cities is based solely on statistics. The statistics I'm about to show you are 2023 statistics from datacensus.gov. The total estimated population of Columbia Borough is 10,172 with a margin of error of 4.4%. Poverty rate is measured in two ways, the poverty threshold and poverty guidelines. According to the most recent report from the U.S. Census Bureau, the poverty threshold for a family of four is $29,960. For an individual, the poverty threshold is $14,891. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services uses the Census Bureau threshold to determine who is eligible for certain government assistance programs like SNAP. These are called poverty guidelines. Under their guidelines, a family of 4 is considered impoverished if they earn $30,000 or less per year. Poverty guidelines illustrate the set minimum amount of income that a family needs for food, clothing, transportation, shelter, and other necessities once a year, adjusted for inflation. These are the poverty guidelines for 2023. The guideline for a one-person household is $14,580, which is $311 less than the poverty threshold ascribed. So out of a population of 10,172, go ahead, Mark, just click it. It is estimated that 20.7% of our population are living below the federal poverty threshold. That is 2,106 of our residents. Using those statistics, I focused on the children in Columbia. So click it one time. 21% of our population are 18 years and under. 36% of our children are considered below poverty level. An estimated 658 children live in the borough under 5 years of age. 44% of them are living below the poverty level. Again, that's almost 1 in 2. And here are just some other statistics. Neighborhood Scout produces comprehensive neighborhood reports. This one is from September of this year. Neighborhood Scout separated their data for Columbia into 3 neighborhoods. Borough Center, in which you have a map, it's the handout that you were given. Borough East and Borough North. For the purpose of this presentation, I used only data from Borough Center. If you're interested in all the data, I will send it to you. Columbia Borough Center, previous one, Mark. Columbia Borough Center is considered a lower middle income neighborhood, measured to be lower than 83.4% of all U.S. neighborhoods. It is considered an urban neighborhood with 5,038 people per square mile. The per capita income is $17,461, one of the lowest per capita income in Pennsylvania. The median household income is $42,963. 15.8% of the population are considered to be single parents with at least 1 child. 4.8% of the population are children under 5. 14% children between 5 and 17. And then there are 3 other statistics at the bottom. Okay. There are more renters in this neighborhood than homeowners. The average rent is $1,678 a month. This is one of the highest gross rental yield in Pennsylvania, meaning the average rent paid each year is very high relative to the cost of buying a similar sized property. Looking at education, 5.2% of adults aged 25 and older have attained at least a 4-year degree. This neighborhood is less educated than 96.8% of all U.S. neighborhoods. The children living in poverty in that neighborhood is 1.9%, one of the highest percentages of children living below the federal poverty level than any other Pennsylvania neighborhood. So things worth noting from these statistics is that 36% of children in the borough are living below the federal poverty line. 19.8% of them live in this neighborhood. That is more than half. There is a large percentage of single parent families in that neighborhood. There are many 65 and older, and we know from the data that 11.7% of those 65 and older are living below the federal poverty line. So an example of how we would use these statistics, we can determine that rent is high in that neighborhood. So we want to ask ourselves the question, what is keeping those living in this neighborhood from choosing home ownership? And what can we put in place or remove that would make home ownership accessible? Now, as we looked at those statistics, there are many areas to focus on that would elevate this neighborhood financially. We can look at child care, education, and skill development. This is only one example that I pulled out of that. Once we determine the answer to these questions, we begin our work by setting in place the neighborhood information and help that would promote home ownership. Once we put those strategies in place, we set up metrics so that we can determine if our strategies are successful or not. Doing this may include asking for help financially or applying for grants. I highlighted a few implementable goals taken from our new comprehensive plan that our plan, using Urban Institute's guidelines adapted for Columbia, would implement. So these were all pulled out of our comprehensive plan. Okay. We all want Columbia to prosper and become as much of a thriving community as possible. I believe that if thriving isn't possible for all our citizens, regardless of their income status, then we are neglecting a vital part of our community. And by doing so, it keeps us from attaining the highest possible level. There is a scripture in Proverbs that says, abundant food is in the uncultivated ground of the poor, but it is swept away by injustice. I interpret this to mean that within the realm of possibilities of those considered poor are sustainable riches. Remove any injustice and those riches will be discovered and utilized. This will not only elevate those individuals, but the entire borough. I would also like to add that we cannot shift the responsibility for this task on one segment of our borough. This is going to take a long-term investment from our government, the economic sector, the nonprofit organization, housing development, individual neighborhoods, and more. An African proverb says that it takes a community to raise a child. It is going to take a community to alleviate poverty in Columbia. As we do, because our poverty level decreases, we will no longer qualify for benefits that are available for poverty households. Instead, we as a borough will receive benefits as individuals and families thrive and become greater contributors to our neighborhoods and our city. Thank you for listening. And give me the money. Give us the money. Any questions or thoughts or comments? Yes.
So, I think you touched on this before, I don't know if your plans evolved or not, but what would your solution be for promoting homeownership on people under the poverty line?
Well, that is where the research would come in. We would determine the individual residents who live there, the families who are there, what their needs are in order to attain first-time home ownership, and then how we would be able to meet those needs. And then after we do that research, we put in place what would be needed to make it easier for them to overcome the obstacle of home ownership.
One follow-up. So I sat in on the 2040 plan previously, and it was promoting in this area, the building of, essentially multi-units, so 6 places. Is that at odds with promoting homeownership?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what you're asking. Like, I consider that in that neighborhood, those apartments were put there. They're for the purpose of attracting single families without children. And so that, their income is all into the mix. So if you're asking if 6-floor apartments in that area that would be affordable for, is that what you're asking?
So I'm asking, is this changing the 2040? I would assume most of those are landlord owned, and they would be part of the problem, I guess, if we're looking at the table here. So would you then be just advocating for, individual units that these residents would be able to own?
Well, once again, it would, it would come down to, once we do our research and we find out the needs and the wants of the people who live there, and then adapting, making it possible for them by removing obstacles or setting things in place that will help them achieve their goals.
Barb, can you explain to me, you're asking for money, I just was wondering what that would be used for.
Well, from what I can get, is, like I said, I because we haven't started all this yet, I really don't know the cost or the people that we're going to need. But it seems to me like the first thing that's going to be put in place is to be able to have accurate interpretation of all the data that we compile. And I don't know if we would have to hire an outside person to be able to do that. Another thing that I thought of is developing the metrics. I don't know if that is something that from our pool of volunteers, the people who are part of the team, developing the metrics, if we would need help with that as well. So at the onset, I would see those two areas as the first possibility of maybe needing financial help.
Okay, so thank you. So, question. In the first time you brought this up, you said the community participation has been extremely low.
Yes.
What makes it, and I mean, we had $500 allotted this year for very low participation. How is going just to have more money allotted, and you haven't spent any of that $500? How are you going to ensure more community participation? I mean, you said you handed out surveys and got 10 back from the ones you did in person, none back from the other. So out of all the ones you turned out, you got 10 back. That's, I mean, that's, I'd say next to no community participation.
Okay. Well, just an FYI, I'm going to have a table at the job fair on Monday with surveys, so I'm hoping to get Columbia residents to be able to do that then. And I have candy kisses to give them as an incentive. But the way, what I'm hopeful about is that this approach is a statistical approach. And so like one of the things, like I wish I could remember what was spoken here earlier. Oh, the tax, like the tax for the library. If we want, if we think that's a really good idea, then we get behind it and we begin to lobby for that to be something that is put on our ballot. So this approach is taken, say for example, education. You know, it is no secret that the education, how should I put this? The graduation rate is very low in Columbia. Education in Columbia has always been a challenge. So one of the things that has always been proposed in government is that we have school vouchers, that parents get to choose where their kids go to school. And so the government gets involved we lobby for these things so that these things are put in place so parents can take advantage of them. So as we, through our statistics, determine zoning laws or state laws or something, we determine that these are obstacles that are keeping our residents bound in this poverty that they can't seem to get their way out of. As we see that, then we begin lobbying for that to make sure that those changes are coming. So this is more of a changing the structure as opposed to talking to individuals and getting, it's changing the structure so that it makes it easier for people to achieve their financial goals. It gets away it moves away the obstacles that could be standing in their way from achieving what they want. Does that make sense? I hope so. So when I first started this, the mantra that I came up with was clear the way to make the way. And I really feel like this strategy does that. It just clears the way, but then it's up to them to take the steps and make the way for themselves. But at least it gets all the obstacles out of their way. And at this point, I don't know what all those obstacles are.
Do you have an idea, Barbara, which one do you feel like are, of the obstacles, which ones you want to look at in the next year or so?
Well, I think that when I look at these statistics here, it looks like the Borough Center neighborhood there, and then Columbia East would be the first two that we would want to focus on. Also, the building of individual neighborhood development. Like if there was a group of neighborhood stakeholders in each of these individual neighborhoods that became a support for one another, a place where people from these neighborhoods can come in and they can talk about the issues that they're facing, and they can be of help and support to each other. So this also builds neighborhood capacity there, but the very first thing that I think we would want to focus on would be the statistics would just choose a neighborhood. Columbia North would be a good place to start since half the population of children under 5 live there. So that would be a good target to start, and then focus on narrowing down the statistics that we need, the data that we need, and then determining what needs to be put in place, and then the developing of the metrics. And the metrics are for the purpose of us being able to determine what's working and what's not working. So if we put something in place and 6 months later, we look at these metrics, and from those metrics, well, did we achieve this? This is what we said would happen if we put this in place. Did it happen? If it didn't happen, then we just get rid of that and then choose something else. And so you can see how this can be totally time-consuming. It's not an easy fix, but we haven't gotten into this position easily. This has been a long-term issue in Columbia, and I think I think it's about time that we as a community, sure, we may have to invest before we see the benefits of it, but I think if we consider our citizens enough, to invest in, I think we will reap the benefits. It might be 20 years down the road, but it'll happen. I heard one person say that if we just focus on the children alone, in 20 years we could alleviate poverty, eliminate it completely, because the cycle of poverty would have been broken, and the youngest child would be 20 at that point. So,
I just have a question. When the vote was happening with Habitat, Cimarron, with the Church property, and it was marketed as it's going to be, market value rentals, is probably going to be the couples that are coming in. There was discussion about it'll be like young couples coming in and spending money and everything. You just said you voted for that because you were imagining like the single parents. You didn't mean like impoverished single parents could afford those apartments, right? I'm just wondering where you went with it.
No. Are you talking about Fourth and Locust?
Yeah.
Oh, the reason why I didn't vote for Habitat for Humanity, is that what it was?
Yes,
Was because I think that you know, being on borough council, you have to consider the whole borough and every citizen in the borough. And I would probably have said yes to any other place except those few blocks on Locust Street where it's considered to be our downtown.
Right, you just said a few minutes ago, when you voted, you were imagining it would be for single parents, and I'm just wondering why.
Oh, I don't remember saying that, no.
Yeah, a few minutes ago, that's what you said, that that's why you voted in that direction. But,
Yeah, I don't remember that.
okay.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's fine.
Okay, is that it?
Any other questions? Comments, concerns?
Thank you. Yes, Nate?
Yeah, I guess I'm still, I feel like I've heard a solid answer about what $5,000 is for, or what.
Yeah, you're right. You haven't heard a solid answer, except to say that I think where the finances are going to come in would be first and foremost to narrow down the data that we need to have, and then to determine where we're going to start, and then to develop metrics. And I'm not sure at this point if we're going to need outside help for that. That might cost us some money.
So council could say, yeah, agree to the funding, right? Put it aside and determine whether or not it could get used for a particular reason, or never get used at all, right? It's not like there's a blank check for your organizations to use it.
Well, I don't know, if you put it in the line item, unless the line item is specific, it is a blank check.
But if we don't use it, we won't use it.
So I kind of look at it like as a placeholder. If council wants to go this way, it would be, here's a line item, and then as things come up to spend that money on, we would look at it that way. And again, I'm not for or against it, I'm just saying that's how I would look at it budgetarily. It's a line item then that would be used for this purpose. We don't yet have a specific thing. And if I hear Barb correctly, what it sounds like she's asking is maybe we could spend some of the money on the EDC of Lancaster has an expert who does a lot of data mining and data and analytics. Lancaster County Planning has a staff there that help with some of these census data, and they will pull down and look at and analyze data, or maybe even get a consultant to do that. If I'm hearing you right, Barb, that's what you're asking for, is to start by breaking down the data down to see where the needs are, and then put a plan together from there on what action items could then help target these areas.
Then who would then be empowered to make decisions about how to spend that money? For example, like, for something like this, sometimes we would have a subcommittee that would be empowered to make, and I'm not suggesting we have some subcommittee, I know there was lots of committees, but I'm just curious, like, who's the one that makes the decision about how to spend that money?
In my mind, that would be Barb.
Yeah,
she's saying this is what the money's.
You said,
Yeah, it would be Barb to say, I want to spend the money on this, and then it would come through in our check thing.
Of course, the request could always be made later on in the year, right? It doesn't need to be set aside and accounted for at this budget meeting or in the budget.
It does.
It does?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, let's put it this way, it should.
It should.
It should.
So you're asking us to make a decision tonight?
Well,
No, but before we adopt the budget,
Before we adopt
not
the
make a
budget.
decision tonight,
Okay, 'cause
just
I haven't-
take the information.
I haven't read any of
No,
this.
no, we're not, yeah, there's no.
We just want to know if it should be put in the general fund budget.
Right, and I would not even think of agreeing to that until I had a chance to look at the numbers and list of everything. I mean, she read off a bunch of stuff. To me, some of the stats don't add up. But I don't want to say anything because I don't even know. You just went through every slide so fast, it's hard to keep up.
When I did that, I I started doing the numbers, I said, wait, what?
I had some questions.
And what I attributed to was the 4.4% margin of error. And if I considered that either less or more, I considered that that's probably where it comes in at. So, and I would also let you know that, I work with a team of people, and we make decisions together, and we determine our steps together, and it wouldn't be something that I would just decide to do on my own. And if a team of people isn't available to work on this is a project that is far, it's far-reaching and much more of a project than I could ever imagine tackling myself. And if I didn't have a team of people doing it, we'd probably put it off for another day. But I think it's important, and it's what I ran on. So, yes, Frank.
Barb, I'm about as confused as I can get, because until I heard the conversation going on with everybody, I kind of put it together a little bit. But for whatever you're trying to do, has this been done in other areas?
Yes. These are guidelines that I found from an organization in Washington, D.C. called Urban Institute. And they have been doing studies on eliminating poverty in U.S. cities for the past 10 to 20 years. And out of these studies, they have developed these guidelines. Now, the guidelines that they have developed are for larger cities. But what we intend to do is put our heads together and take these guidelines and adapt them to fit Columbia, and then using them to fight poverty within our borough.
Bottom line, is your main desire to help somebody buy another property?
No. My main desire is that when's our next U.S. Census? 2030?
It's 2030.
2030. My main desire is that maybe in 2030, our poverty level will be down to 16%.
And what is it now?
20.7. And that's just a little bit below the margin of error. If it goes below the margin of error, then I know we're doing something. If it stays the same, if it goes down a little bit, but it doesn't go over that margin of error, then I don't know, maybe I'll be dead.
I'm a little bit like Eric. I like to read things.
Yeah.
And go over it and think about it. But earlier in your report, you had up there that, what's the average for an apartment here in town?
No, that was just in Columbia North. That's not all over Columbia. The map that you got is...
The only thing I can see on the map is this blue section that's right by the river.
It was really hard to see. That's why I could see North 3rd Street, and it goes to the river, and then it goes north and south. It goes up past Route 30. But the statistics in the other areas, Columbia East and Columbia North, the rent is different. And there are more homeowners in Columbia North than there are.
I thought I seen the 1,700 versus something else. I don't know where these people get that money to pay that. I have one rental. They're elderly people. I get $800 a month. And I really hate to raise it $10. They're elderly people, good people, and they're in Social Security. And these other people, they have to be working couples. I sit here just shaking my head. I don't know where these people get that kind of money.
Right. Well, not all landlords feel the way that you feel. And some landlords, because they know these people will pay it, they'll do it. And the people, because they're afraid of being out on the street, will do what they can to make sure they pay that rent. And this is where a Columbia Housing Authority would come in as well. And that is all part of the plan to elevate our citizens and eliminate poverty. If we had a Columbia Housing Authority that would address these landlord-tenant issues and put things in place through codes or zoning or whatever, so that these people who maybe are on lower income or fixed incomes because they have intellectual disabilities or whatever, will no longer be taken advantage of. So you see how it's interwoven through every part of our community. That's why just one segment of our community can't solve this issue. And yet we've been putting it all on the churches, I think. We've been putting it all on churches in our borough to solve this problem. And unless we as a community step up and work together and do what we all can do, it's going to remain the same.
So I gotta stop you there for a second. I don't think anybody in Columbia said to the churches, it's your responsibility.
No, probably not.
Nobody did.
No, probably not.
The church is a community.
Stepped up.
And we are a community. So I don't think you can sit here and say we depend on the churches, because we don't. The churches actually depend on us as a citizen.
Well, I have to admit that my mindset has been, when I've thought about this in the past, is, oh, well, the churches are taking care of that. If I give, a couple $100 over here, then I'm free of my responsibility for taking care of it. And maybe other people have felt the same way, or said the same thing to themselves. But, I don't know.
Well,
Let's be honest here, though. I'm sorry, I have to say it. The single biggest obstacle to economic development within Columbia Borough is the school district. Until we improve the educational outcomes at that school, we are not going to improve. Ouch. I'm sorry, you have to be honest.
Oh, I heard you say sorry.
When you see that at a third grade level, or in the elementary school, the literacy rate is what it is, as put out by the statistics by the school, that tells you all you need to know.
why are we letting this happen?
We have no control over the school district.
Yes, we do. We have control of who we vote in.
Yes, we do, but that's all I'm saying is, until we get the education up to par, the poverty is not going, because that's, like I said before, if they're not literate by third grade, the chance of achievement as an adult is significantly decreased.
Now, I'm not saying that everybody who lived in Columbia North graduated from Columbia High School, but I find it staggering that the education level in Columbia North is 96.8%. Like only, 3% of U.S. cities are more educated.
But Barb, don't you think that's the way some of them want to live?
Pardon me?
And don't you think that's the way some of them want to live?
Possibly.
That's what they're used to.
Possibly, but that doesn't mean we can't do something for the people who want to pull themselves up and out. Or who want to, we have not been created. We've been created with purpose and destiny. Nobody deep inside themselves wants to just float through life and not achieve anything. But if you take away people's dreams, like if I give you an example, when we moved here, my son was in 6th grade. We moved from Donegal to Columbia. He was in 6th grade when he entered Columbia High School. When he entered, he wanted to be a police officer. Yes, be a police officer. You can be anything you want. And after so many years, and then he's, well, maybe I don't want to be a police officer. Maybe I'll design t-shirts. Okay, design t-shirts, whatever. By the time he graduated high school, it was, Mom, just leave me alone. Leave me on the 3rd floor, let me smoke my pot, and just leave me be. There's no purpose for my life. Now, I don't know what was snuffed out of him, and I can't say it was just the school. It was a whole lot of other things, too. But we got to stop snuffing purpose and destiny and excitement and excitement for life. We got to stop snuffing it out of people and letting people go for their goals and achieve their goals instead of telling them you're destined to live on welfare because your mom did and because her mom did and because, you know, and we got to start somewhere.
I see what you're trying to do. Good luck.
And if we can't change the school district, what can we put in place as a community? What can we put in place as a community that would bring skill development and education?
Well, I mean, the library is doing that stuff.
Yes.
There's other
So let's
places that are
support
doing
that.
it. Right, I mean,
We have a thriving homeschool community in here. We have private schools in the borough. Go for school vouchers. Let parents choose where they send their kids to school.
I've been advocating for help with our schools with our state representatives for a while.
May I go back to something quick before I forget? Tammy, maybe you can help.
I'll try. I'll do my best.
When they talked about a blank check and then that Barb could kind of decide how that money would be spent.
Sorry.
Okay, so I know what you're saying.
Because there were parameters set
Yeah.
for us, what we
Right.
get for CAS
Right,
money.
and so what I would recommend is if you guys decide to put this $5,000 in, I would put it in as a consulting fee for the program you want to start. And you would name your program, and I would call it consulting fees for that. That's how I would do it, because you're right. There does need to be some sort of, not just like random thing put in the budget and say, just do whatever you want with it. You know what I mean? I agree. That really isn't, so you would, set that up. That's how I would recommend doing it. Like say, we're gonna do consulting, $5,000 in consulting fees for whatever your program is gonna be called. Does that make sense, Barb? Is that the train of thought you're taking? Okay.
Yeah, because it's not a charitable contribution.
Correct. It would
It's
not be a
fee for
contribution,
service.
it'd be a fee for service. You were thinking it was charitable contribution, is that what you were thinking?
Me?
Yeah, no, I'm asking you. What
No,
were you
I
thinking?
just heard somebody say earlier that it would be.
She could do whatever, yeah, no.
Yes, she could
Yeah.
decide how to spend that, and we would just go along with that.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that doesn't sound right to me, because we were told we could only do.
Right,
And we were
and I-
very careful.
Right.
Before we got under the animal shelters.
Yes,
501c3, we were really cautious of how that money was
Correct.
being used, and we kept careful track of that.
Right, because that's how we set it up for. We set it up to just do the travel.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
So that's what it would need to be more clear, a little more better defined, and I'm thinking of it as like a consulting, that's what I'm hearing, Barb. If I'm not right, please tell me.
That initially,
For that first, because you need to start
That's
somewhere.
what we're going to need to start.
Okay, and you need to start somewhere. Okay, that's how I heard it, so, okay,
Right.
thank you.
Can I get that, more of a suggestion than anything else? Barb, to be clear, I'm definitely in favor of the $5,000 that you're asking for. I'm just very curious as to what actually spent on, but I don't think anything that the borough can throw at this, as far as dollar amount is, it's something, it's obviously a huge problem. It's something to prioritize. I'm going to go back on what I said a little bit earlier about subcommittees. I would suggest that if you want this to be something like this be taken seriously, to not rely on just one person, one bar, but to have a formalized group, whether or not you call it subcommittee, I don't know, but I mean, for example, Lancaster just created their own commission that's studying the third class situation they're going after over there. I'm not saying that it would be like an elected position, but like get behind this initiative. If you want to garner some motivation and excitement behind this initiative, create a group, call it something, and formalize it in some way. Call it something, call it whatever you want, but don't just put a line item in the budget and, expect Barb to figure it out. Get some people involved and create a chair, a vice chair, and secretary. That being part of something like that, people feel empowered and they'll work harder if they know that they have the borough government behind them and supporting them. That would be my suggestion.
Goes to what Sharon was saying, that's how your cat.
Yeah, we had a chair and
Yeah, and how that all started.
it kind of got a little more formal.
Right.
And we could probably take the task force that exists now and just let it evolve.
You sound really passionate about this, and I think it's a really good thing. And so what you're talking about is taking accountability. And we have separation of church and state for a reason. It's not the church's responsibility to take care of we citizens. But I do think the subcommittee idea, I think it will be worth reaching out to experts. We have done something like this before, so that you know from the jump that we're moving in the right direction.
Thank you.
Anything else on any of the budget related stuff? No? All right, moving on. Borough Council comments. Councilperson Bernard. Councilperson Fisher.
Nothing.
Councilperson Colton.
Nothing.
Thanks.
All right, and I have nothing this evening because Phillies are probably done now, right?
Oh,
They lost.
They lost.
They lost.
The Phillies lost. She's not feeling well.
She wasn't feeling well since she left. Yeah.
All right, announcement of next meeting at 7 PM on October 24th. Council will hold a regularly scheduled meeting. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
A motion by Councilperson Kaufman, second by Councilperson Stahl, to adjourn at 9:29 PM. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? We're adjourned.
Jack.